Hello, welcome to this video. In the previous video, we spoke about encapsulation and saw three ways to create an object. The first way was using object literal syntax, the second one was using the dot notation, and third one was using object.create. Let us reiterate what encapsulation is again. Encapsulation is defined as the wrapping up of data in a single unit. We created three users with key value pairs, that is user1, user2, and user3. But we can't manually create objects every time. What if we had a million users? In this video, we shall create a function and house in the functionality inside of the function, and we shall create users by calling the function. This way, we need not create object with increment name items in all the users manually. I already have a file users.js, and inside of users.js, I am defining a function and I'm calling it users. And inside of users, I'm passing in the parameters name and items. Inside of the function, I am declaring a variable new user and I'm assigning it an empty object. To assign properties into the new user object, we'll be using dot notation syntax. New user dot name, name being the key and name here being the value that is being passed from the parameter. New user dot items, items being the key and items being the value that is being passed from the parameter again. New user dot increment, increment is the key and I'm assigning the increment key a function of increment which returns the pre-incremented value of items, that is new user dot items. Now I'm returning new user, that is we are not returning the object, we are returning the values inside of the object to the variable from where users was called. Now inside the global memory, I am declaring a variable with user1 and I'm calling the function users and I'm passing in the argument John Doe and items to be 2 for John Doe. Now I'm console logging user1, sorry. When I console log, we can see that we have an object name of John Doe, items to be 2, and increment to be a function. This is being returned from the new user, and we are assigning it to the variable user1. Now let me increment the user value, items value, and let us see if 2 has been changed to 3. We can see that now 2 has become 3. Okay. Now let me create a different user, and I'm assigning it the users function and I'm calling users function with the argument Jane Doe this time and I'm passing Jane Doe the items to be 3, the argument to be 3. Let me console log Jane Doe, that is user 2. Let me clear the console. When I execute it, we get an object of name Jane Doe items 3 and a function. Again, this is being returned from new user and we are assigning this value to the variable user2. When I increment user2, when I call the function increment from user2, we get the output to be 4. Here we are passing in 2 and 3 as the argument for items and we are taking the parameter here and we are assigning the parameter to new user and new user dot items and we have the value 2 here. But when we execute the function increment and inside of the function increment, we are pre-incrementing the value of items and we are getting 3 in place of 2 and we are getting 4 in place of 3. Everything works fine. We are getting the solution as expected, but there is one small problem with this solution. Not small problem, there is a problem with this solution. Let me show you what the problem is. I'm putting a breakpoint at line 12 and I'm executing. We enter the debugger mode now. Now in line 12 we are calling the function users. So when we call the function users, we are sending the argument John Doe and 2 and the argument 2 to the function users. So now we'll enter the variable environment of the function users. When I step through the code, we can see that inside of the local memory, we have items to be 2 and name to be John Doe and new user to be undefined. We are getting the items value 2 and John Doe from the parameters here, name John Doe items 2, and we are getting undefined for new user because we are using the keyword var. In place of var, if we would have used const, this wouldn't have been there because const cannot be reassigned, and in place of new user to be undefined, we would have had an uninitialized value. Now we are assigning the properties of name, items, and increment with a key. We are passing key value pairs to the new user object. Let me step through the code. Here we can see that the new user has become an empty object from undefined, and we have the value name John Doe. We are assigning in the properties. Now we have items to be 2, and we are passing in the function increment as well. Now after everything is done, we are returning these values to the variable user1. Okay, now we are in line 13 and we are calling users again. Now let me change var to const and let's see what happens. Okay, now I'm stepping through the code. We are inside the variable environment of the users function. We have name to be John Doe, items to be 3, but now you cannot see new user to be undefined. We are using const now and the value is uninitialized now. That is, new user is uninitialized. Now when I step through the code, we can see that new user has been assigned an empty object. Now again, stepping through the code, we can see that we are assigning key value pairs to the new user object, and we are returning the new user object, and we are assigning it the value. We are assigning the value to the user2 variable. Okay, now let me go through the global context. Let me scroll down. Okay, here we have user1 and user2. Let me drag this a little bit. We have user1 object with increment items and name keys, and in user2 we have a key value pair of increment items 3 named Jane Doe. Can you see what's happening here? We have increment both in user1 and user2. We need only one copy of increment function. I don't want increment on user1 or user2 or usern. As a matter of fact, what if we have increment in a different function where I can store increment or decrement or any other methods that user1 or user2 can be called with, and ask for JavaScript to go to that object or function when it doesn't find increment on user1 or user2 or usern? We shall see how we can approach that implementation in the next video. Thanks for watching this video. See you in the next video.